Okay, well, if we're ready. Are we ready? Okay. We'll call the meeting to order tonight. Welcome, everybody. It is March 7th, 2023. The City Council meeting of the City of West Liberty, Iowa. I am Mayor Ethan Anderson, and we have with us tonight Mayor Pro Tem Cara McFerren and City Council members Dana Dominguez, Ashley Smith, Josh Schiltz, and Omar Martinez. Glad everybody can be here tonight. Also, our city manager, David Haugland, is here. City manager, not for much longer. So we'll miss you, Dave. City Clerk Geertz and Deputy Clerk Shari Hoffert, as well as Communications Specialist Brittany Woodson. Our Police Chief Eric Whirling is here, as well as a healthy contingent from our West Liberty Volunteer Fire Department. So welcome, everybody. Library Director Ali Carr-Smith. Did I miss anybody? Wheelie Director Ken Brooks.
Engineer.
City Engineer Leo Foley. And we'll let you introduce yourself when your time comes. Excellent. Okay, the first order of business is to approve the agenda, and I'm going to ask for us to amend the agenda. Council, you'll have in front of you an amended agenda. We added just a couple of items that go along with the flow here, but just a few items you'll see. Let me list them out to you so you see precisely what they are. Items 4A and B. Originally, Kurt Sickles was not able to be here tonight, and so we didn't have that on the agenda, but we added that now. This the acceptance of Kurt as the fire chief and the oath of office, as well as item 5A, which is a bond presentation by our representative Nate Summers, as well as one final item on 8A, the amount of vendor voucher claims list number 1 changed to $702,531.54. Does everyone see all those? Could I ask for a, I don't know what I need to ask for.
A motion to approve.
Okay. What do we need to redo the motion for the amended agenda to get that recorded?
Let's do it, just to be on
Yeah,
the same.
sure. No problem. All right, so I'll ask again for the same folks to motion.
Motion to
Approve the amended
approve
agenda.
amended agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Before we move on to item 3, and now that we're in session, I would like to congratulate, and I would love if the room could give a round of applause to our city council member and band director extraordinaire, Ashley Smith. I went to the band concert last night, and Ashley, along with Mr. Thiling, the middle school band director, did a phenomenal job. And I think if you haven't already heard, it's big news that Jazz Band 1 is going to the state competition the first time in 26 years.
Yeah.
Very, very, very good. It was fun. It was a good time. Turned into kind of a party. The whole crowd got into it there.
It's ate it up.
Okay, item 3 is approval of the consent agenda, which consists of the city council meeting minutes of our last meeting and the city clerk treasurer report from December 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second, sorry.
It's moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would just provide that the updated treasurer's report, the completed treasurer report with reconciliation was placed in your packets. So the information in there, primarily your only difference would be is the interest accrual update to those balances that you had to review in your packet over the weekend. So
Any questions at all about that or discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. We have item 4A, And discussion and appropriate action to accept the West Liberty Fire and EMS Association members elected Fire Chief Kurt Schiltz. This is something that I just want to talk about this for a moment because I looked it up in the city code because I want to understand how it works. It's important to bear in mind that this council didn't set up this process at all. It was set up many, many years ago by those who decided how all of this was going to go. This fire department didn't set up the process. It was set up many years ago by the elected officials at that time. So I just want to read to you how it works from the code. It's section 414A, Fire Chief. The city council shall elect from the members of the fire department a chief of the fire department, and in so doing shall elect such person as may be recommended by the members of the department, provided such recommendation commends itself to the judgment of the council. So you as a city council have been appointed long ago as overseers of the fire department, as you well know. And I know there's been obviously a lot of discussion about this over the last couple of years and many misunderstandings and many things have been said, and we're working on undoing some of those things. And I think we've made a lot of really good progress toward bringing all of us together. That said, your decisions, council, are you have oversight over the fire department by law, and so you know that's that the buck stops with you, so to speak. And I just think it's important to note that this body is elected by the people of West Liberty, and the decision of this body will stand. You have the voice of the community when you speak, and you have the weight of the law when you make a decision. So this decision stands as you make it. With that said, you've seen the report from the volunteer fire departments, and they have elected their officers, including their chief, to be Kurt Schiltz. So I would accept a motion to accept that, not the report, but accept Kurt Schiltz as the fire chief. Sorry, did I say police chief? Sometimes I get.
No,
Sometimes I say police chief. Okay.
A motion to accept Kurt Schiltz as a fire chief.
second,
There's it's been moved and seconded to accept Kurt Schiltz as the fire chief. This is a consent vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. It will be my pleasure, chief, to swear you in. And what we're going to do, we workshopped this here before the meeting, and so I'm going to ask Councilmember Dominguez to scoot over just a little bit. We have a couple flags we're going to place right here so that we can have us in front of the flags there for the cameras. And somewhere I have an oath of office. Oh dear. Using the papers. Yeah, papers that were put out prior to do. Here we go. There we go. Wheelie Director Ken Brooks. He is the official one. No. Sorry, council member.
it's okay. It's my honor.
Do that. Is that suitable? Or is that you in there?
Everybody mind if I take this off for this? Or you can take it.
It's been 5 days.
It's been, yeah.
Good seeing you. So I'll just read you a short sentence and you can repeat it right after me. I, Kurt Schiltz, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
That I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all duties
discharge all duties
of the office of Fire Chief
of the office of Fire Chief
of the city of West Liberty, Iowa,
of the city of West Liberty, Iowa,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now and hereafter required by law.
Congratulations and welcome, Chief. Right. Thanks, Chief.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much and welcome to you, Chief. We'll move on then to item 4C, which I think we get to hear from you. Chief, if you want to present your annual report.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, Council. As you can see, the report I sent it in quite a year. New officers, as the mayor said, for this year will be Assistant Chief Tom Christensen, Medical Officer Tammy Wiggum, Fire Captain Brian Blake, Secretary Treasurer Mindy Sickles-Sturbins, and our trustees will be Eric Christensen, Dylan Christensen, and Carlos Jaquez. And our truck lieutenant for the department will be Kurt Heckman. You can see next up was miles that we have on our current ambulances, our 2011 Alexis and our Lifeline. Ambulance coverage, currently we are covering hours with part-time paramedics and EMTs during normal day hours and nights. Currently have a paramedic on board at least Monday through Friday, 4 out of 5 days of the week. And depending on availability, weekends as well. As we know, we currently can hire up to 200 hours. Our goal is to have one of these days, EMTs and paramedics covering 24/7, 365. We currently have 10 EMTs on board, and as we'll discuss a little bit later, I'll go into a little more into that. And the ambulance board at our last meeting discussed that we'd like to see a little more flexibility with having a few more people on board with us so that we can cover hours. And in case somebody leaves for vacation or whatever, we can cover those hours. I would like to thank the city of West Liberty and the council for the $100,000 to go towards the purchase of a new ambulance, the COVID monies. I will share that we have seen one ambulance thus far, and we have a couple scheduled that will be coming in to look at. Bad news about that is we're currently at about 2 years out at a minimum. So if we ordered tomorrow, it would probably be summertime of 26. If
Wow.
we got it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's for a brand new.
that's for a new ambulance, yeah. We do have our rescue gator finally. I want to thank Lee for helping out with that, getting that done. We have named it the Newcomb Rescue. Here for Kurt. So we're just doing some little modifications, you know, with our emblems and stuff like that to take care of that. We had 300 city calls and 346 rural calls for the year. Moving on to fire. The next list there is our assets that we have on board. It's got the mileages and hours and such for all the trucks. When you look at total calls for the year, we're just a few less than we were last year, which was surprisingly with 123 versus 129. We had 649 volunteers responding to calls. The average of about 5 per call, down 1 from last year. structure fire, we had an average of 7. So we're down a couple from that. City calls, rural calls, you can see, 1050s car accidents, rescues out at I-80, fire alarms that went off. Grass fires, I have to say in the 20+ years that I've been on the department, we had the biggest grass fire that, I think it's even in Iowa history, if I'm not mistaken. Had pretty much 800 acres of ground that was destroyed, combines, tractors, planters. We were out there until I think after midnight when we finally came back, and we had to go additional 6 times because of restart. That particular fire was over $1 million damage. So just to note, all our first line pumpers and such were recertified in 2020, and there was no major issues at all. Repairs of note for this year, we had the tank in 713. It had a split in the top of it, but we had purchased several years ago a lifetime tank insert for that, so they came and fixed it for us for nothing.
Oh, wow.
So minor repairs to some of the trucks with basic valves replaced and seals and such, nothing big. Proposed for equipment for 2023. We'd like to start something with getting a couple sets of bunker gear every year so that we can keep everybody in good fire gear, and pagers are always at a loss of pagers. This is the radio, but we have smaller ones that we use for pagers, so we can hear wherever we're at. 5-year plan, as you look down, we want to replace maybe a couple of trucks, look at a super dumper to keep our ratings up. This would be a Class A truck that we would use to keep, I think our ESO ratings would go out like 15 more years, so we'd extend that insurance and such stuff out for us. But the bad thing with that too is there's a 26-month build out for any trucks
Really?
right now. Yeah, and you can't get basically any used trucks that are class, 1 pumpers, because they just aren't out there, period. So we like to get another front spray mount on our brush buggy. We got one with a front spray that helps when you're in those nasty grass fires, you can stay inside the truck and not eat as much smoke. I'd like to get some more rescue gear for our ladder truck. One thing that we would like to pursue pretty hard is portable jaws and rescue equipment. We can't tell you how many times we've been on accidents where we needed 2 sets of jaws and 2 cutters and everything. And we had people trapped in both cars. So you had to wait till you got one out. If we had 2 sets, we could disperse and take care of it. And again, on there, pursue the new ambulance about 2 years out. One thing we started this year that we want to continue and maybe do this a little better. We started a continuing educational program. That's going to be next Saturday, right?
No, the 25th.
Oh, the 25th of March. So we're going to try to help everybody with their CEUs, because it's a lot of stuff to maintain that stuff up. We'd like to start an intern firefighter program with the high school. We've tried a couple times and got that started, and then we lost our contact. One of the teachers, she passed away. So we'd like to get that going from that. Next page is just names of the officers and the firefighters, the volunteers. You can see on there that red is people that we've lost, green is what we brought on. So we basically gained 2 and lost 1, so we net 1 on the year.
It's not color coded for us, but I think Sandy Hike is the one we've lost,
Yeah.
and then Rupertino, Martinez, and
And
Mike
Mike
Stout
Stout.
are new.
So Altogether, really, when we start to look at things, one thing I like to point out that most everybody works out back down. So if there's any fires during the day and even the early evening, we have very few folks around. So, and if you look at the numbers, how things have went this year, we have even two of the staff that are on here, Tammy and her husband live out of town, although they do fly from Haugland to come up and help us out. But it's still, you look, I have about 5 firemen that, you know, are under 10% on calls, but the rest of the clan that we have just really digs in and helps out. So, we have 10 EMTs, and if you look at all the calls and such, that spread is really thin. We have a combined 114 years and 4 members, and I'd like to point out that Mr. Dog here just had his 35th. I'm on my 40th year. Oh, 40th year, I'm sorry.
I know, I'm not that old.
So then Kurt Heckman too celebrated his 25th year with us. The next senior guy is Blaine Kelly with like 29 years. So, and from there it drops. So one thing that I'd like to point out to the council is that we had one individual on our department this year that went on over 400 calls. And that was Paul Reed. And that was pretty impressive. I've been on the department for 20 years, like I said, and I've never seen anybody go on that many calls. So,
Here.
you look at our education for the year, for fire, we have to maintain about 24 hours, to maintain our CEUs. We try to get about 40 plus last year, and in 22, we got 41 hours. As an EMTB, you have to have 32, an AMT 72, and 72 for your paramedics. Some other things that happened during the years, we did fit testing, which we just finished it again in January, and that is putting the masks on and make sure you can provide a good seal so that if you go into a fire, you're not sucking the smoke, you're getting oxygen, pure oxygen. Our life packs that we bought in 2022 this is something that's not very many departments have, but we have 30-year packs, which was I think a phenomenal buy, and we got one heck of a deal for them. And of course, our rescue gator, our trucks, we put in a little over 21,000 miles this past year, going out to our different adventures. We had new members that passed firefighter 1, and we had 2 members that took the EMT classes, but did not get through the state. So we're hoping that they will continue to work to get that, and we do have some support that we've been helping them with classes and such to try to bring that up. So
Yeah.
that is my report. Do we have any questions?
Questions or comments?
All right, I thank you.
Well, thank you for being here, and I think I speak for the whole community when we say thank you, really sincerely, thank you.
It's good, everybody.
400 calls, Mr. Reed. It's impressive.
I make him go.
Oh, you want some credit? Is that right?
I beg him not to go most of the time. No, it sounds dangerous. He's out the door before I even get a word out. So I'm proud of him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you so much. Awesome. Excellent, super. We'll move on to item 5A, unless there's anything else that you want to share with us. Anybody, guys, we're open to if you'd like to. Glad you're here. 40 years.
rolling, keep things rolling.
Sounds good. Okay, will do. Feel free to stay for as long as you'd like of the meeting. Also, don't feel obligated to if you'd like to head out. We know you have a lot to do. We'll move on to item 5A, which is a bond presentation from our representative Nate Summers. Before I go on, do we need to officially accept the report at all, or that's? I don't think so, right? I think we receive it like we do the other.
You know, why don't we do it this way? Let's take a motion and to file and receive it, so that we
Okay.
have it on this report.
Sure, that sounds good. We'll accept a motion then to file and receive. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll accept a motion to file and receive the West Liberty Fire and EMS annual report.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
Moved and seconded to receive and file the report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The motion carries 5-0. All right, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Summers, if you could introduce yourself and walk us through.
Sure, yeah, Nate Summers with UMB. We were the bond underwriter for the city street bonds, for the upcoming project. I've got a packet of information in front of you if y'all want to just follow along. There's a lot of information here. There's some economic data. I'm going to hit the high points, but if you have any questions about anything, don't hesitate to stop me and ask questions. But I'll make sure I hit the high points and we can get them along. So I'll go ahead and dig in here, starting on page 5. Just want to give an overview of kind of where interest rates are at and the current market environment. So as you can see, since the first of the year, we've had interest rates that have kind of progressively come up. We continue to have pretty strong economic and jobs data. We've got this pesky and sticky inflation thing that kind of continues to persist. Banks have a little bit less money now than they typically do because people who are typically savers are saying, I can put my money into things like CDs and money market accounts that are earning more than just regular deposit accounts. And so banks generally have a little bit less money to invest in things like municipal bonds, which is the primary buyer of this type of an investment. So you can see we've been kind of battling an upward trend of interest rates. And what we'll find is we were able to price the bonds at an interest rate that was a little bit lower than kind of where we started talking about things toward the beginning of the year. I guess it was maybe even at the end of last year, and a little bit higher now than what we thought they were going to be a few weeks ago. So if you want to flip to.
Went up quite a bit there in the middle of February, didn't it?
Yeah, we had quite a jump in the middle of February. It would be page 10. It's behind the divider. It's number 2 for the pricing analysis. And there's a sheet that says sources and uses of funds right across the top. So the way we size the bonds, you've got your construction bid for the project. We've built them over with contingency. And we kind of use that project fund, what we know that you need to fund your project, and we kind of back into sizing the bonds. So that project fund was a little over 2.27 million. And then when you add in the cost of issuing the bonds, attorney's fees and financing costs and things of that nature, gets us to a par amount, or the actual borrowed amount of the bonds, to be 2,355,000. You see there's an amount way at the bottom. This is additional proceeds, 3,000 and change. Municipal bonds are sold in denominations of 5,000, so that's just a rounding amount to get us to the nearest 5,000. The next page, again, there's a lot of statistical information there. The prominent one that I would point you to is the true interest cost, or TIC. That essentially gives us it's kind of like, works kind of like an APR. You'll see when we price the bonds, every year's principal payment is a separate bond or an investment that an investor could buy. So you're going to see there are different interest rates for each year. Those interest rates are fixed, but they are different for each annual payment. And so this true interest cost calculation takes all those various interest rates and gives us kind of one interest rate to look at. So the true interest cost was 4.45% and change. We had a call with city staff at the end of the week last week, and we worked through some comparable transactions. When you're pricing bonds, they're not really apples to apples in the market. Different communities have different credit strengths and things of that nature, but
kind of similar to when you're buying a house, you look at what else has happened in the market recently and kind of compare it to those things. We kind of work through some comparable transactions and believe this is fair pricing. I will say, one of the local banks, the city has a relationship with, is it Hills Bank? They took about a third of the deal. So that is an investment that kind of stays locally here. Edward Jones took a pretty decent chunk of it as well. So there's a retail investment shop that community members would be able to purchase bonds from Edward Jones. So it's always nice to see the local involvement as well. If you flip to the next page, the bond pricing reports. So kind of like I said, different interest rates for different maturity dates. Each of those are individual investments that an investor might purchase. You can see those rates and yields and prices are a little bit different in different spots. They look like they're different, and they are, but they're all fixed. So it's not like the interest rate's variable and can move up and down or anything like that. All of those interest rates are fixed, and they all play into that 4.45% sure interest cost. I'll pause there. That's kind of the summary of the bond sale results. And then there's another inserts at the back of the book that we can jump to if there are any questions.
I don't want to interrupt your presentation, but I do have a question. I just want to make sure I understand how this works. So the maturity dates that are listed on each of these individual bonds. Can you just walk me through us through the nuts and bolts of when those are issued and how, you know what I mean? How the timeline works?
Sure. So all the bonds are going to be issued at closing. So we'll close on the financing March 21st. UMB, on behalf of all the investors that purchased the bonds, will make a wire to the city.
Right.
The city gets the money up front. Each of these maturities are the annual principal payments that the city is going to make. You're going to make those payments with some mix probably of using your debt service levy and some balance in your debt service fund that the city has built up a little bit over the years. So each of those maturities, those are the annual payment dates. So
So the annual payment dates. Okay.
yeah, if you look at the next page, it'd be page 4. It shows you've got annual principal payments, and then you've got semi-annual interest payments.
Okay.
And those will be collected by the paying agent and distributed to the bond investors.
Okay.
Semi-annually.
And you just market those kind of individually as a way to make it easy for
Yeah,
investors
So different investors will have different holes in their investments that they need to plug. And some bank might say, we need to buy short bonds right now, and another bank might need to buy longer maturing bonds.
Yeah.
It just depends. Each investor has different needs and desires, and so they'll purchase different. Yeah, I mean, you kind of like you look at a bank that offers a variety of duration of CDs or that type of an investment where likely with the CD, the interest rates shorter are going to be a little bit lower, and the longer out you go with the CD, typically the higher the interest rate. And you kind of see that in the yield column on page 3.
and it's interest only until 2027, it looks like.
Correct. Yep. And we kind of did that to shape the new debt around some of the city's existing debt, so we don't get a big spike up in your debt service levy initially for the first handful of years. We've deferred some of those payments to kind of smooth that out for taxpayers a little bit.
Great.
Great questions.
Just to add on to it, you know, that, so when we discussed our debt levy and we talk about a 2.25, setting that. So the goal, that's what Nate's saying too, is that, you know, the idea of goal is to keep that affordable and keep it where that goal is at, so we didn't have increases that would impact from the taxpayers. And so this helps that as well, is to maintain that debt levy goal of no more than 2.25 as an increase on our.
Because the project's been bid a lot lower, or a little bit lower, right? Okay.
That it adds to it too. Yeah.
And
You're on.
we made a little bit of a shift since the last time I spoke with you folks. We were planning on having a little bit more of the debt pushed even back a little bit further, but when bids came in a little bit lower, I came to David and Lee and I said, hey, you know, the project cost is a little bit lower. let's just pay it off a little bit more quickly, and we can still hit that objective of making sure that we keep your debt service levy in that 225 ballpark. So if you want to pull, that, were there any other questions? Sorry, some of you are still taking a look at it. It's a lot to take in.
So it's good to just look at that bottom interest line and
Yeah,
realize what the community pays to
well,
get this done.
providing nothing major happens, then we'll just be able to pay off the interest faster. So that we can start working on the actual like premium or, you know, amount of borrow, and which will end up being much more, you know, effective.
Is that feasible? You have prepayments?
Yes, starting June 1st,
Cut you off there.
2030, you can start making early payments on it. There's a lockout period that investors want to know that they're going to be able to collect interest for a certain number of years. Yeah, the interest payment, you look at just the interest payments down at the bottom, and you also have to keep in mind, we're borrowing in today's dollars, and you're going to pay those off with, you know, $39. We've got inflation at 10% right now.
Sure.
Those dollars are, you know, more valuable now than they will be in 2030 or beyond. And you look at, we hope you look at the interest rate of 4.45%, and you compare that to whatever construction inflation is right now, and that's probably higher than that. So you can look at it that way too. Yes, you're paying more interest over time, but if you're going to try to like save up local option sales tax or road use tax and try to do this with cash,
It's a good point.
you're just gonna wind up getting swamped and not get anywhere. So you're beating inflation. Interest rates are higher now than they have been over the last 5 years, especially. Even the last decade, we've seen interest rates just super low. And we've gotten kind of spoiled with free money. But this 445 is still, you know, historically, contextually speaking, that's still fairly on the low end of things. So if you want to pull the packet out that some of you started looking at here, this is the debt model that we looked at when I was here in December, and I've updated it with the new bond information. I've updated your new taxable valuation for fiscal 2024. We flip to page 2, you can kind of see what I was alluding to earlier with referring some of the principal payments.
Yeah, this is great.
You've got a lot of your debt matures by, you know, you got a kind of a drop off after fiscal 25 and another drop off after fiscal 2032. And so we kind of push some of that back, like I said, to just kind of smooth out your debt service levy a little bit. With this borrowing, it brings us to about 60% of your debt capacity. So you've still got plenty of headroom with other projects that you might be considering in the coming years. That's always something that we want to be cognizant of. The next page shows principal and interest payments. That prior page only showed the principal payments. This page shows principal and interest. And you can see if you look at the total principal and interest just to the right of that gray column, just right of center, P&I total, you can see those annual principal and interest payments are fairly stable throughout the course of the repayment. The column just to the right of that says less abatements. And that's just other sources of revenues other than your debt service levy that the city plans on using to pay off some of these bonds. So there's some balance that's in your debt service fund right now that we're planning to just kind of stagger spending down over the next decade or so to do like what I was saying, keeping your debt service levy pretty consistent. And you can see that over on the right-hand side in that right gray column. That's projecting your debt service levy forward at about $2.25. And that's assuming 0 valuation growth. So if you get some valuation growth and you don't issue any more bonds, if you get your historic growth, your debt service levy drops to the low, like $1 and change by the end of the final maturity of your existing bonds. Just to give you some context for what you already have outstanding and how the new debt fits as a piece of the puzzle.
That's really helpful. See what loans we have out there now. This stops at 2043 with the TIF rebate. Is that Is that where that actually ends, or did you just cut it off
I
there?
cut it off there. I'm not sure if that's where that ends, but I cut it off there because.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, general obligation debt can only go out 20 years, so that's what the table fits.
Very
So this is something that whether or not you issue bonds on a regular annual basis, this is something that we can keep updated annually for the city. And it's something that hopefully Lee finds helpful in her budget process every year. There's other information you can keep flipping through that hasn't really changed since the last time I was here. If you have any questions about it, I can answer other questions, but I just wanted to provide that update with the new bonds built in. And just acknowledge Lee and David and all their extra work with the financing. Taking on a street project like this is always a lot more work on their plates, and this time of year with the budget and the legislature making some last minute changes, Lee's had a fun last couple of months. So tip of the cap to them as well.
I have a question, and
Yes.
I don't know if this is like an intelligent way to ask this, but it looks like maybe every 3 years we've kind of undertaken a new really big project. So is the next time we should do a project like this with a bond situation like this, 2026? Like, is that a healthy way to go? Or is that, should we be doing these projects more frequently, less frequently?
I mean, doing projects regularly, to the point we were just talking about with. A lot of people say, you know, we're doing this project, we're taking on debt, we're swiping the credit card, but it doesn't really work that way with city projects, because like we said, you've got construction inflation to deal with.
Right.
And you get to borrow at tax exempt interest rates, and so when you're borrowing for projects, you're beating inflation, you're getting more bang for your buck by actually using debt. So to your point, yes, doing regular projects is a good idea. There's not really a secret sauce or magic to doing it every
What's
3
the secret
years.
number? Okay.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. I typically defer that to your engineer knows the condition of your streets and
Sure.
what's coming down the road.
Okay.
No pun intended, but
Uh,
what roads need to be replaced when. To that point, if you have projects that you know you need to undertake in the next 5 years or so,
Yeah,
we can add in future debt and kind of plan for that.
sure.
Nathan, if I can add, so I did provide Nathan, so we have a capital improvement plan. So the capital improvement plan takes into account, and you review that, you know, when you take off projects and they're adding, those come up during strategic planning. And then we look at that, and our engineer is a part of the capital improvements plan. So for example, when we were going through this bond, that was a discussion with Nathan to say, under the general obligation, what would be the next large project? And so phase 2 of City Hall. So again, when we're doing financing and funding and debt, looking at that, we're taking into consideration that that's currently on our capital improvement plan, looking at 2024 possibly. And so again, those are things we'll continue to look at, and we'll go over that when we get into the budget.
Okay, I was gonna say, when can we put that on the agenda? Okay.
That we discussed that over budget, so then you understand how that all falls into our budget costs and, yeah.
Yeah, because one thing that is important for us to remember when we're planning that is to make sure that as a city financially, we are able to maintain that general obligation debt service within that certain percentage that we want. It's like setting our budget and sticking with it, because if we go beyond, 80%, then we're going to be carrying a lot of debt that it would impact us in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because-
80%, that is typically 80 to 85%.
You don't want to go over that.
Yeah, if you flip back to page 2 of this packet, with the principal payments only, it shows.
Yeah.
It shows your debt capacity over on the right hand side,
Yeah,
and debt capacity utilized, you're at about 60% now. And
right, so we're.
80 to 85 is typically where we suggest,
Right,
you should have a good reason to go over it. You need to go over it.
I mean, that would be like in a very, something incredibly, well just blew up or something.
Tornadoes and floods. And
Yeah, I mean, something pretty catastrophic if we had to go that high, because you don't want to carry that much debt. Don't change that.
So, and again, these are also the concerns with the legislation and their proposed changes, as well as, how will that impact the general obligation, the property tax dollars? So it's one of those, by taking out the debt and doing the projects, we're showing the fiscal responsibility to legislation, that this is how we're utilizing, and we've got a plan in place of how we would utilize those property tax dollars. And I think that that's some of the things that are before them now, is that, why is that bill on their table, is because they're trying to determine if the cities are showing measurement or showing proper use of tax dollars. And so that's what's led to that. And so by making sure we have those plans in place and budget, that is the measurement, that's the tool that we're showing, I guess we are. This is all we have to work with, so please don't take any more away from us. So, yeah.
Mr. Summers, could you explain one thing? You talked about it, but I didn't quite exactly follow. On page 3, you talked about the abatements
Yeah.
column. So I see the principal and interest total column. And then what are the abatements again?
Yeah, so abatements, if you flip to page 6 of that packet, that column is fed by everything that's on page 6. So you're currently using some TIF dollars to pay off your 2017 A bonds. So I've got that built in as an abatement, and then there's some TIF dollars for the 2016 A's. And then there's a balance in your debt service fund. And we're gonna plan to use that over the next 10 years or so to just kind of level out your debt service levy and keep it at that 225 ballpark.
So that's,
So the abatements is other sources of revenue.
savings or revenue.
Other than your debt service levy that you're using to pay for the general obligation debt.
And there is a marker measurement, or however you want to say, that we have to be really conscious of with TIF as well. We're only allotted a certain ceiling with TIF, I believe. So, and we're below that. We're within the means, but that's also something to keep in mind.
Be aware of. Yeah. Great. Anything else for Mr. Summers? Anything else for us?
For my defense.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. That was very helpful. Mr. Foley, at the end of our last several hour meeting, you have Councilmember Dominguez to thank, because she said, could we just move this up further in the agenda? And so I don't know if it's gonna stick, because council is gonna look at some rules of how they want the agenda to go, and we'll let them decide. But for tonight, you're up, so.
Okay, we'll start with Rainbow and Max and Improvement. The contractor sent a schedule to me today with a little bit different phasing plan than what we showed. That's normal. He knows the area very well and has a schedule to make that. We are reviewing that schedule. We'll probably be getting together with staff this week. They would like to start cutting trees down next week. So we would like to have a pre-con meeting and get them before they even start that. And then the following week, they'd start really working as far as clearing goes. So we have a few things that we have to work with them. One of them particularly, they wanted to do a lot of the road in a full, close the road and be able to take care of all the residents, put a little side road that they put in. So they have some plans that look like they would work, but a little bit different. So we want to work through it. Got that today. Other than that, everything else is going really well. In fact, they're getting all their submittals taken care of. We feel good about where they're going.
Great.
The Columbus Avenue sidewalk extension. We have now finally got that surveyed. Our next step is, once we get them going out there, is to give them a plan that shows them exactly what they have to do. They'll come back with a price. We decide, do we want to do a change order or do we want to come with it? I'll come back to you with that. It'll probably be a month or so.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
That's on Columbus Ave. The east side drainage study. Again, we've looked at that. There's some real tricky areas in that area. We think we've got it all figured out now. As you probably know, there's lots of areas that don't drain well. You've got the new school project over there. So we've got that all pulled together, and again, it's probably gonna be about a month or so before we're back to you with a preliminary report. But we're coming down pretty good on that one. And then the final one is well number 2. Next council meeting will be coming to you within a schedule. For the city that we broke it into phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is the well improvements. Those will get done with a well contractor. And we'll put that out for bid. Still has to go back to DNR to be approved for construction. They approved the overall using that as a water source. By the way, that's a huge approval. That one usually takes a long time. But the construction approval, we have to do on every project. So we will go to them at the next council meeting. We'll come to you, give you that schedule, and send those plans to the state to review. At the same time, you'll be reviewing those plans. The following month, we'll come back to you with the enclosure and what has to be done at the powerhouse. And so next week, before the city manager gets away, we'll try to have a meeting and try to square that away. We have 2 or 3 alternatives, and we've got some things there. So that one's, the whole intent is that by the end of the summer, that well's up and in production. Then you make a decision on, are you helping West Liberty Foods? Are you not helping West Liberty Foods? They had asked to use one well exclusively, but we wanted to get this done before it happened. So I think everything's on schedule and we're moving forward. Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Council, you have in front of you all of the reports from city staff. Any questions? City manager, you want to share anything?
Just, if you have any questions about ours, we did, get a report on the West Liberty Food Pantry as to their use of the ARPA funds.
Yeah.
Since the year, as well as from the school, they've utilized some of their funds, since they received those back in December as well. So, and we'd asked them to provide quarterly reports. Father Yermo usually gives us some response. So,
That was great to see we hadn't seen yet the food pantry or the school foundation.
yeah, and the food pantry, I think a lot of that had to do with their Christmas boxes that they put out. Plus, they've had a huge increase in the number of residents that have been seeking assistance through the food pantry the last few months as well. So it was a good use of some of those dollars.
Very good use.
I have a question about the police department report. I noticed this on the last one too, and I forgot to ask, is this one of the vehicles is out of service and needs to be sold? Is that like something we have to do? Like, do you need us to take action on that? Is that like an us job?
I know that there are certain, and V can probably speak to this better than I can, there are certain protocols that have to be followed when you're getting rid of city property.
Right,
So it's ready to go. It's just when we have time for it, when it's a good time to do it, the car's decommissioned, all the stuff's out of it, all the markings are out of it. It's was immobile when I started,
cool.
so it's still.
Mhm,
so
it continues to
whoever-
be immobile.
Yeah, so, but there's certain protocol, and V can speak to that, but it's just whoever.
I think one of the things you should do with that particular vehicle is go out to either Purple Wave or Gov Deals and put it out on auction and see what you get. I mean, I've been amazed. If it runs, I've been amazed at some of the prices people will pay on like Purple Wave and some of those auction sites for city equipment. So
What's the process for that then? Does the fire department or police department need to just submit a document saying this is what we want to do, or how does that work?
So we have a policy that provides the step, and so we have to post a public hearing that we're gonna
dispose of it.
dispose of the property.
Yeah.
And then council will approve the process to dispose. So again, I mean, Chief and I can get together and we can outline that process. And then whatever Chief recommends how he would like to have it, then we can either go through, make that a part of your process that you're looking at to approve. We can either go to auction, or it can be publicly posted with the index, or, just however.
I
You
don't
can see
know if
that.
council wants to get involved in the nuts and bolts of it. You can if you, you want to, but I would think if
No,
you,
it's a policy in
if you just
place.
provide
No.
yeah,
Yeah,
whatever
just-
you want to do.
Just
then-
like Chief said, it's a matter of, with our schedules, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
We know it needs to be done. We have it ready to go. It's just,
It's
and
been pretty
it's just
slow.
the chief needing to
Yeah.
have time to get that process with us so we can get it before.
It is a really good question. And I was reading the city audit that came out in 2021, I believe it was. And there's a whole discussion in there about this exact issue. It's really interesting because they go into detail about those patches that the police department, when they were creating special patches about, autism awareness and that kind of thing, and selling them as a fundraiser. And then it turned out that some of them were given away. And the auditors flagged that because you may not give away anything that was purchased with taxpayer dollars, even a patch. You know what I mean? And so fire department has also dealt with that, with wanting to, give away some of their equipment. And so there's a process that needs to go through for you, the council, to say, yes, this is what you want.
Yeah, I mean, think back to like when they had I think, some of the old AEDs and they were donated. There were some things that, council can donate things to.
Right.
We donated chairs as well from the library.
Yeah.
Those wooden chairs to the Dream Center, I think.
And we have had some community interest in the vehicle. I know one person specifically has asked me about it more than once, which again, selling it, it's not hurting anything. It's sitting in the garage, so it hasn't been high priority. There's been a lot of things on top of it, but we do have some community interest. I don't know if the council would rather us check locally and then try Purple Wave. I'm open to suggestions. I don't. If we follow the policy, I'm good with it.
Even your local person could bid on Purple Wave, you can take it through them. Just get you a little more exposure to folks, because people do track those. Or especially that auction site, but you could let your local folks know that that's where it's going, and they have an opportunity to bid on that as well. So.
Sounds good. Okay. Further questions? Any members of staff want to jump in and share anything in particular?
Mr. Mayor, I'll just
About
quickly
reports?
add just an update, where Shari, you can speak with me on that, where we're at with our timeline and our reconciliation project. So from my side of it, I've reconciled everything and I spoke with Bowman and Miller with regards to what I've been able to audit and what my adjusting entries have been, and Shari has communicated to me that she's completely through the parts of her reconciliation with her numbers. And so when we have an opportunity here, probably within the next few weeks, we'll go over everything, and I've communicated that to Bowman and Miller. We'll send them a detailed update about where we're at with things and some updated financial reports. They're still continuing working through their tax season. And so based on our discussion, then we should be able to pick this back up at the end of April. And that the city was approved for our extension for our audit files. So, and that's all I have to add for that.
Committee meetings. I think the only active committee we have right now is the EMS task force. Did you want to speak to that?
Sure. So we had another task force meeting on Monday, and the meeting before that was just a week before, and we decided to simplify the 28E agreement, kind of break it apart into this is the 28E agreement, maybe have a draft of bylaws, and then look into some leasing options for the equipment in the building. So we kind of had some homework to do there. And so at the task force meeting on Monday, we mostly discussed the 28E agreement. Mindy had walked us through each section of the revised version so that we can check it off to make sure that we have all the requirements that the 28E agreement would need to have per state law. And that was forwarded, and we made some updates based on some of our feedback as a task force, and forwarded to the task force members.
with hopes that the next step is to get it vetted by attorneys. In the meantime, Eric is creating kind of a draft of bylaws. So that if the board is created, that they can have at least a starting point to work with the volunteers for those bylaws. And also we talked about, he contacted Solon, which has a 28E agency formed. That's how that they have recently gone through all of this to see if it would be beneficial for council members and the mayor to speak with Solon's council and mayor to see how it works for them, maybe bring up any concerns or questions. See how it's been going so far, as well as the fire department as well. And so he's waiting on some times to see when we could get together and maybe do that. Let's see. I think that's all I can remember now. I don't, Lee, do you have anything to add? You were there too. If something that I'm missing? No.
That's a good update.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Leo, I know you love our meetings, and maybe you have some other things you want to be here for and address, but don't feel obligated to stay if you don't want to.
I was thinking I might,
That's that's fine.
I do like the meeting.
We don't,
Thank you.
we don't mind. Have a good night. Any questions for Councilmember Dominguez? All right, anything else we need to talk about, reports, or we'll move on to item 6. We have a bevy of public hearings and resolutions to get through tonight, so we may need, yeah, let's do it. We may need your help to know, to make sure we're getting all this right, as you said. We'll go to item 6I, opening the public hearing on the proposed designation of the West Liberty Dutton Urban Renewal Area. I'll accept a motion to
Motion to open the public hearing for.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yeah.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
The public hearing is open. Are there public comments or correspondence on this issue?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I have not received any public correspondence, and I've not been notified of any public that was going to be present.
Okay.
And I would ask for communications to verify if there's any communications on Zoom. Nope. No messages.
Okay, council, you have anything?
Nope.
If none, I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close. Second.
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
The public hearing is closed. We'll move on to the resolution to declare necessity and establish an urban renewal area. And approve urban renewal plan and project for the West Liberty Dutton Urban Renewal Area.
Motion.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to accept this resolution. Is there any discussion? You want to give us a one sentence of just what we're doing here so the council knows?
You'll recall the previous meeting, we took the Vicey property out of our urban renewal area. And in order to allow the developer to capture the amount of time on the tip agreement, we had to take his property out and put it back. As part of that, we had a planning and zoning meeting last night where the planning and zoning had to look to make sure that the plan conformed with our comprehensive plan, which I think at that point we had 4 of the 5 members were there, and the 4 voted 4-0 that it did meet that intent. The city also held a meeting for the school district and the county or the other taxing entities, and I think the only person that came was one of the supervisors, which I believe us with him on that. And I don't think we received any other comments. We received nothing from the school related to it. So what you're doing now is you're going to be establishing to put that back into the urban renewal area. So we'll allow you to walk through the rest of the steps to move forward with that particular project.
Mr. Mayor, if you would allow me to, on the school and the county representation, I would just like to thank, County Supervisor Kirschner. I've been here with 11 years and that's the first, county supervisor that has attended. And he more so attended just to have a better understanding of our project, the process, and we had a lengthy discussion. In turn, he also asked for our comprehensive plan and some more information to better understand what is going on in the community. So I'd like to say thank you to County Supervisor Fisher for taking the time to come to the meeting and allow us to provide him.
Excellent.
That's all I have to say.
Great to hear. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote on this resolution. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez. Yes. The resolution passes 5-0. We'll look at an ordinance providing for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the West Liberty Dutton Urban Renewal Area. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I just advised that I'm within your documents just to follow along because we've got some step-by-step proceedings here with this.
Yes, that's what
Action.
you were telling me about, yeah.
Yep. So you should be on page 1, minutes providing the passage.
Okay, hold on, let's make sure we're on the right page here. Okay. You guys find, hold on a second.
Is it after the bond purchase agreement ones? Pages?
It's gonna be after the plan hearing.
It was
It's gonna
the
be-
additional papers that were in your binder. It's the one that has the square up in the left-hand corner that's blank and then it has writing on it. Yep.
Hey, one more time.
With the square on the top left corner.
Yep, this blank. Yes, on the top, go up on the top left, it's blank, and then the writing are on the right-hand side.
We're gonna.
The additional one that's in our side binder.
It's in your side. Yep.
It should be the minutes provided for the passage of the ordinance and statute.
That's gonna be the one. They're on the survey.
Yeah, we have a bunch that look exactly the same, so.
It should be,
Inner
it should be in your packet.
Yeah.
So. This
It's in
is-
your book.
It's the minutes.
So you're gonna be on the minutes providing for passage.
Minutes providing for passage of an ordinance establishing a tax.
Yep.
And it's gonna be shortly after all of the staff reports, actually.
I'll find it.
Yep, you got it, yeah, okay.
Just a few more pages.
And that's just it, I mean, that, we're gonna take our time, sorry, I just wanna make sure, yeah.
Ashley loves hearing, we're gonna take our time.
Mm-hmm.
Taking our time to make sure, yeah, that you understand. and go
Okay.
through those.
So we have a motion and a second on this particular ordinance. How do you want to proceed?
This is your first reading, and I think much like you did when we did this for Travis Shields, is we would look to have all 3 readings this evening. That's what the minutes that have been provided by Dorsey and Whitney take into account. Now, if you choose not to do the second or third reading this evening, you can do that. We'll just have to go back to Dorsey and Whitney and have a new set of documents drafted for your next upcoming meeting. But really, all you've done is you've taken it out and you did that in 3 readings at a meeting, and we're asking that you just put it back into the plan with 3 readings tonight.
So we need to amend the motion to,
Well, you're actually gonna do your first reading and then you'll have
And
another
then-
motion. If
and
you
then-
flip your page, it'll
Okay.
kind of walk you through the next step.
okay, so we have the motion and the second to approve the ordinance first reading. And then we'll go on from there. Is there any further discussion? If none, Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez. Then, if I understand you, we need a motion and a second to waive.
Yeah, if you flip your page,
Yeah.
you'll get your, it'll kind of tell you what motion that you're gonna want to make.
So now you're gonna go to page 2. probably either on the back side of that page, it should be 2 pages.
No, I see it. I just, yeah, looking for the actual, language, I guess, for the,
It would be.
Can I make a movement that the ordinance providing for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the city is put like for its final consideration and adoption? Are those the right words?
Waive,
You're gonna,
waive.
you're gonna waive, or
Okay.
you're gonna make a motion to approve again, but waive
Waive the
her
third reading.
third reading. We'll make it.
So here's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna. If we just go ahead and have a council member make a motion and a council member make a second, and then I'm going to read. The section that we're on for us to move through. I think then that way you have a.
Is it the one that says the statutory rule requiring an ordinance to be considered and voted on? Okay, cool.
So she motioned, I'll second.
Okay, so. And that, oh, yes, I'm sorry. Now I'm trying to catch up. That the statutory rule requiring an ordinance to be considered and voted for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed and suspended. The mayor put the question on motion and the roll being called, the following named councils voted. So
does this match the motion as you as you have made it and seconded it?
Sure, yes, yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Then it has been moved and seconded as such. Any further discussion? Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 5-0.
Now you'll need another motion second to.
go ahead. I was just gonna let the mayor go ahead. You can go ahead and then the next sentence is your mayor. Whereupon.
So if I just go through this, basically
Yep.
you're just saying I should just go through this, okay?
Just like
Yeah.
the script.
All right, so I just don't know how to do it.
You were-
All right, so we need a motion, if someone wants to just read it then, starting with the quotation marks, then that would be correct, as you were gonna do a minute ago.
Yeah,
There you go.
okay.
We're gonna get good at this.
That's okay. Yeah, I make a motion that ordinance number 2023-0307-03. Now be put upon its final consideration and adoption, I don't say the part about that. That was just my motion, that was it,
Now we put upon its final consideration and adoption.
period.
Is
Second.
that fair?
Mhm.
Okay, is that suitable? It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Another roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez. The motion carries 5-0.
And council members, if you were correct, I was just trying
That's
to.
okay.
So I didn't know.
Excellent. Okay, can we move on? To the
Yes.
resolution setting a date? Yes, okay, we are at. Item 6, resolution setting a date of meeting which it is proposed to approve the development agreement with GHS Development, Inc., including the annual appropriation tax increment payments. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
Moved and seconded to approve this resolution. Any discussion?
This particular.
I'm sorry, Mr. Who was our second? Thank you. Go ahead.
This will be setting the hearing, and it's been proposed to have that on the 21st of March at your next meeting. I did talk with Jason Dumont. He intends to have the agreement signed and back and ready for you to approve at your meeting on the 21st.
Excellent. Any further discussion? If none, this is a roll call vote. I'm gonna mix it up now. I've been doing it always the same way. Now I'm gonna go backwards. Councilmember Martinez.
Yeah.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember McFerrin.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Excellent. I think with that, we're on to item 7, public hearing, electric rate amendment. I will accept a motion to open the public hearing for adopting new electric rates.
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to open the public hearing. Any discussion? Again, a roll call vote, Councilmember Martinez, Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember McFerren.
Yes.
The public hearing is open. Are there public comments or correspondence on this issue?
Mr. Mayor, I have not received any public correspondence, written correspondence, and I have not been notified that we would have a public attendance for first comments. So, no messages.
Anything online? Okay, have you guys heard anything from community members, electric rates?
No.
Okay. And nobody here to talk about it?
Mr. Chivers is in the corner.
Mr. Tivers, would you like to speak to this?
About the rates,
Electric rate increases.
I thought we already discussed it like a month ago.
Yes, we did.
That's the
Okay.
public hearing.
Now,
So I don't have anything to add to it other than what the changes were made in the ordinance. So, no,
you're happy with it as written?
as written. Yeah, I think that that's where we need to go. Is that where you guys think we need to go,
I think we're about to vote on it, but.
right?
Yep, I think so. Excellent. Thank you.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Any discussion? A roll call vote, Councilmember Martinez,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember McFerren.
Yes.
Public hearing is closed. We'll move on to the ordinance. Make sure I'm on the right one here. Amending Title 7, Chapter 3, Section 10, electric light and power rates in our code. Adopted new electric rates and setting forth the following rate structure. This is our first reading. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
Motion. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Or very briefly, if you could, can you walk us through the updated language that you?
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna turn this over to the deputy city clerk, and I just wanna recognize that she did a lot of work in making sure we went back and researched previous ordinances, historic ordinances to bring this in line.
Yeah.
So we have an ordinance that is actually in line with how utility billing works. And base the dates on that, so we'll let deputy city clerk Hoffert provide that information for you.
Excellent.
Okay, so there's a few changes and most of them, I don't know that you guys have the highlighted. or
No, we
is
do
it?
not.
Okay, so in the section 1 where it's saying the electrical, like the electric rate to be effective July 15, 2023, that's for that increase, that 5% increase on there. That's what that is talking about. Then as you continue to go down, you'll see that we used to have on letter C, commercial consumers, and it has minimal use on there. I spoke with Verbal in a lot of length, and she said that that is something that we should not have in there, that it should be just straight across the board commercial, because their use is going to be based on whatever their consumption is. So she told us to remove that, so you'll see lines going through that portion of it. And then on the back side, so if you're looking at additional provisions, and then number 1, the cost of purchase energy, that PEI. So in order to get that input in the time frame that we need, you will see on there that it will be effective due, like for the bills that are due April 15th, which is the reads from the 15th of February all the way to the 15th of March. So we're going to implement that one, and that's a one-time implementation. So you will see that change on there. The other part that you will see is the implementation of the initial increase that, or like that initial change that was supposed to happen 22-23. For the customer base, which on the back here, you can see what I'm talking about, where it says 22-23, and it has the $25 increase on there for the residential. That will go into effect on the April billing as well, so that we can still meet that deadline for the 22-23, and then the increases, those changes will happen each year in the July. Yep. Yeah, so you will.
And that's at 5%.
Correct. Yep, and there is the breakdown before you guys didn't have that portion. To be able to see what the actual breakdowns are, but you will see the residential, the commercial, the large industry, all of that, you will see the breakdowns for them. For those increases.
I just look for the lines.
I was gonna say.
And if you look at your packet agenda that was emailed to you, that was
It's
all
yellow
in
in that one, yeah.
colors, so you'll have that, so if you want to refer back to it.
Yeah, so those changes that happened on the July 15th is actually July 15th to August 15th, which those bills are due in September, because once it's passed, then at that point in time, you have to move forward from that date. That's why that 15th is on there.
Questions?
Oh, it's good. Thank you.
I have questions in F7. It talks about changes will be implemented for February 15th,
Yeah.
March 15th. Can you explain that? So it's gonna be
That's what I'm
retro,
talking about with that base charge. So if you look at where it says, please see exhibit A in the, like behind here,
right?
there's that implementation for the 22-23 fiscal year. That is that charge where we're going from the 15 to the 25 for that base charge.
What, I'm confused about February. How is it? So it's gonna be retroactively billed?
That's our billing side.
It's
That's
the
the
billing
building cycle.
It's the billing cycle because
that-
we bill a month behind, so the bills.
February 15th through March
Yeah.
15th.
Yeah,
Oh, that's-
at March
that's-
15th.
I understand
The
you.
billing
Okay, I understand
portion,
you now.
and that will be because we
understand
only
you.
have a few months left of the 22-23 fiscal year.
I understand
So
you
we
now.
have to implement it in order to get that put into place for that time frame with how Verbal has it set up for us. So it won't be due until April 15th, but it's the billing cycle, which is February 15th, March 15th.
That's just, yeah, that's how the bills
Yep,
work.
we work
And you
in
get-
retro month.
Now I gotcha.
Yep.
Okay,
And then from this point on, every July 15th,
Yeah,
we have that 5% increase.
correct. Yep.
any other questions? Thanks for making that more clear
Yep.
in the language. If there are no other questions, this is the first reading. And we have a motion and a second. I'll do the roll call. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yeah.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0. 8A vendor voucher claims list, number 1.
I make a movement to approve the vendor voucher claims list number 1.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve vendor voucher claims list number 1. Any discussion?
I had a couple questions. I just have to find them. Okay, so we had a vehicle repair, number 15 for $10,000.
That was multiple vehicles.
Oh, thank goodness.
There was, I believe 2 of them, there were 2 were police, there was 1 on the trash truck.
Okay.
The trash truck was a sizable, but it was 3 different vehicles.
Okay, good. That makes more sense.
On the garbage truck, it's not uncommon that I mean, from a maintenance perspective, because, your hydraulics have to be oiled, they have to be cleaned, and then oil changes and, so those are typically some costly and you would, I want to say, I think those go in. From my understanding, that's like twice a year, it could be more depending on how the hydraulic system's working, but because it takes, fluids in order to do that, and because of the day-to-day use of it, that's where there's typically a little bit more of a cost. Chief just stepped out, but he could probably even explain a
Yes,
little more on,
yes.
if we had significant repairs on, police vehicles.
One note on the garbage truck, I know I asked Adam about that, that was part of their state inspection on the truck.
Okay.
And so a lot of those updates and line changes, fuel changes, everything like that was to get everything up to spec and make
Oh,
sure that it
okay.
was state certified.
Did we ever get the part for the leaf blower? Or is that
Oh,
a
good
different-
question.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
we
So-
did, I know it was
Steve says no.
They
Yeah.
got, they got.
They got the
one
main
part.
part.
They got one
know they
part,
hate it.
and then when they went, to put it together, there was something else that had gone bad.
Every time I go down
No, I can give you.
Columbus, I see leaves sitting there. and
All
I'm
over
like,
town.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what's happened real quick. So I visited with Adam last week and here
Is
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 the.
Adam, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
Is Adam with us on Zoom? Maybe you could
Was.
walk us through it.
Oh, there he is.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, he
Maybe-
can,
maybe-
he can,
maybe-
I mean, if
maybe-
he's there, and I'm sorry, if he's there, but I'll give you a quick update,
Yeah,
and he can fill you in the rest. So he can bring you up to date on the current, situation of the existing leaf machine and.
My thing froze. Okay, I'm here. Holy cow, that was, no, my phone froze along with, the Zoom stuff. I restarted my phone, sorry about that.
I tried to,
As
but
far as-
it was Adam.
Oh, you're on.
As far as the leaf machine, the part, excuse me, I have received 2 of the 3 parts. I have been waiting a couple months for the hydraulic motor. And we've had no luck getting that until last week. They found one in Michigan. It is at least 4 weeks out. But I don't know if Lee was talking about the new purchase or whatever. If we can get it at a decent time, I still plan on doing leaves if they're not mowed over or mulched up by then or whatever. It's been a pain, but I want to go away from this company because they don't seem to ever have parts on hand to do anything. And as far as that automated garbage truck, yeah, it was the DOT inspection, all new tires, brakes, fix few oil leaks, this, that, and the other. So we'd be able to trade it in for the new one we got. And that is it.
Bring up Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember McFerren.
I did have somebody talk to me in regards, well, I not only received Jen Colwider's email, but also there was concern about the railroad as it pertains to going through West Liberty the way it does. In light of recent issues across the country with train derailments, we as a city need to be, I know it's one more thing that add to the pile, but we need to really take a look. I don't know if it's the public safety or what department would get it or committee would get it, but taking a serious look at updating and revisiting our emergency plan. Because or if you can take that to in your committee, I think yeah. Omar, you go to the NJCC EMA.
Yeah.
committee.
I think the thing that I had heard was there's concern with the location of the fire department if there was a derailment or something.
See, that's just
Get some
it.
different parts of town, you know,
That,
that was kind of the
That
concern
is-
that I had heard recently.
yeah,
But
because
I'm not-
because the actual rail lines, if you look at them, there is a curve in the rail lines. And if there's going to be a derailment, more than likely, physics could dictate that a train will go always outside the curve, not inside the curve. And what's outside the curve is your refrigerant and cooling systems for West Liberty Foods currently, which does carry ammonia. Okay, that is aligned with the adjacent to the railroad tracks. There's the fire department. And then there's also the fact that it comes through town as closely as it does.
Omar's house.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
And then,
That's-
and then, we also know that, the rail line that does go through, half the time does carry ethanol. You know, there are full tankers of ethanol that come through town. For the most part, and then there's some farm agricultural chemicals as well. But
So what's the action step? What can be?
I think it needs to go to committee first, and then
Do we
I
have
don't-
that now, please?
not,
So
I think it has to go to the county and the city.
it's under, so, and this might be something for whomever's on the EMA board.
Yeah.
You would,
I
to my
think that's Omar.
understanding, yeah, to my understanding, the EMA has,
Right.
they have a detailed plan as far as emergency pertaining to,
There's supposed to be a meeting coming up
yeah.
sometime in the next couple months about emergency evacuation and stuff.
Okay,
I'll talk to Chris Jasper.
Like just talking about with some of the drills that have happened across the country, you know, just make sure that things are updated and
yeah.
they're aware of what needs to be done.
Because I think in light of what's happening, we need to make sure that we have that in place. And then we have to make sure, I think, that we need to list that for residents' access, whether it's online, website, or whatever.
That's a good point, yeah.
We,
Maybe you
and
could bring back.
Well, because well, me personally, I have training at the end of March up in Des Moines. And I'm
Okay.
doing an actual like. Railroad car
Mhm.
chemical training. So I mean, I'll probably get more information there.
And I don't know if it behooves us to reach out to Iowa Interstate, which is the company, the railroad line that runs through, and just develop a connection or open lines of communication. But I know that in the past, there hasn't been very much of that.
so we can ask, request their disaster plan, what's their disaster
Yes,
plan?
I would
to
like-
have
I would like
availability
that.
To review their disaster plan,
Mhm.
and also.
If they have a governmental affairs person, that's what it started with.
And also the city, again, remember that we were asked by our audit that we need an emergency plan in place. So. I
Yes,
think-
because we don't have one.
So then, based on what you're saying, then you would want to make sure that we incorporate that. And also then in that plan, you would align those contacts for railroad. I mean, those are just
Mm.
things that you would look at as you're going through. But
Right.
we would get that, we would also in addition get that guidance from Muscatine County.
Yeah, because technically right now,
Yeah.
if we were, anything would happen to that, we would technically right away call hazmat.
Exactly, yeah.
From us.
Mhm.
So who would take the lead on getting that put together then? Would that be the council member on the EMA committee or
Well, that was,
or
you know,
public safety or?
that was one of the things that I talked to you about,
Yeah,
late last year was having you kind of help develop that committee to do at least the city plan that the auditor wanted, and I had that sample that I was gonna give to you,
right.
which I can still get to kind of look at.
Would it fit into one of our existing committees, you think, that they could?
It's gonna be a larger group of people that you're gonna bring together than just, two
It's
council members on a small committee. It's gonna
Multiple committees,
it's gonna be a lot of folks that'll be involved with that.
plus,
I mean, Jamar, I think, participated in the plan that I'm gonna give you, that was done in Washington.
yeah,
And it was a lot of people that were brought together and the mayor kind of spearheaded along the kind of management team.
plus whoever is going to be in place when we get a city manager in place. I think that individual will more than likely really spearhead, you know, who is going to do what, don't you think? Whoever the city manager is going to be the predominant one organizing where everything goes. But, yeah, because, I think that needs to fall in line with their. job
Yeah, I mean, again, I think, from what the mayor was asking, it certainly could, the process could start with your public safety committee. And then the public safety committee then can, set steps. That would then move it forward as to what needed to be done, you know, and be able
Yeah.
to work with, you know, again, those entities. And then organize it.
Because we need to have in place, like, in the event something happens and the town gets cut in half. You know, what route are they gonna take to get to the north side from the south or vice versa? And where are people gonna go if we have to evacuate, you know? quarter of a mile or whatever from the railroad tracks. I don't know.
That's an important topic.
Things like that.
Well,
Yeah.
and just as Councilmember Martinez said, the EMA has a huge book and the hazmat team would come in.
Mhm.
And then you have what's called, they take control of the scene and then they have a directive from there. So I think then that would be the big thing is just making sure we understand within the emergency plan
County,
is,
yeah.
is who we call, what's the steps, and then they come in and take control of the scene.
Okay,
Is that the right word I want to say? Yeah, okay.
Thank you for bringing that up.
so,
Anything else for tonight?
no, that's all I had.
Okay, that's a big one.
Really good issue.
Make sure we tackle it.
Issue to have.
Okay, so I had some people ask me about the last council meeting video, and they're like, oh, how come it is not online yet? And I was like, I don't know, let me ask Lee and Brittany, and they let me know that they've been super busy this week. And Brittany's like main job is accounts payable, I said that right, accounts payable, and so she does the communications part when she can. But she got it uploaded last week, which is amazing, and so thank you for doing that. And people were like, yay, thanks for doing that. So yep, so that was cool. I got an email concern that maybe we weren't paying like the most attention during council meetings because we have our phones out a lot. And I was like, oh, thanks for asking about that. I always pull up the city code on my phone because I don't know it very well yet. But I said, I will bring a tablet for that. So I have a tablet with a city code on it
There you
today.
go.
So that was cool, but like, that was good feedback, because I was like, oh yeah, it probably is what it looks like when you're sitting, at home or whatever, probably, yeah. I also got some emails from current city employees that said that they love working for Lee, and Lee is a really good boss, and they really support hiring Lee for city manager. And then I also got some communication from people that are concerned that we're not doing external job search, and that we're not doing our due diligence if we're skipping that part, and that this is the time of year to consider doing a search like that, because many city managers in other places, their contracts are up in June. And so this is a perfect time of year to do that external search. So that I heard from both sides on that issue, and that is all I have.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good to hear. Councilmember Martinez?
You heard all the same things.
Good, excellent.
Mhm.
It's good to hear from the community. City manager, Haugland,
How many correspondence to share?
okay?
Quickly, I'm just gonna share, so, Brittany and I did discuss, our plan for tomorrow. What we're gonna do is we're gonna provide her the opportunity to focus on the video first, to get it processing, because it does take some time to get it uploaded. And then while it's uploading, then we'll continue to process our claims packet. Just so,
What I have been working on this entire
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So we're getting ahead.
again, we appreciate your, recognizing our workload, and I'd also like to add that I did extend the offer to Brittany to, if she was interested in the permanent position, because she's been serving as an interim. So she did accept that she is interested in being promoted into the permanent position of communications. And so from that, then I will follow up with what our next steps are in that process. This week, we will meet Shari, and Brittany and I will sit down. And as we've talked about before, we know the job description needs to be updated. And we also have to take a look at what her existing duties are as accounts payable, and make sure those align so we can go to that next step.
Permanent, but not full-time. She would still be doing both roles, is what you're saying.
Of the transition plan, there will be a transition plan in place.
Are you saying at the end she would be full-time communications?
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I wasn't clear about. So,
Yeah. But again, we want to engage Brittany, and we want to take the exit interview information from the previous communication director and bring those together. And we want to draft a new job description based on those. And then again, that would have to come before council for an approval. So we will get along to those steps, and you'll be a part of that as well. So, okay.
I have a question about maybe if something would save time, and maybe it would not, but I know that YouTube has a live stream feature, and it has the option to automatically archive the live stream as a video on YouTube after that. Would it save time and energy for staff if we were to concurrently live stream on YouTube at the same time as we're running a Zoom call? Is that something that would save you time?
So my concern is with that is because we occasionally have to go into breakout sessions for
Mhm.
closed meetings.
Right?
So it's something that we would entertain having,
Maybe
a
on
discussion on
Mhm.
and just, again, with that newly assigned duty, I think that those are exactly the things that we want to be able to allow time and have her, I know she's been working on, we've been trying to identify specific training,
Mhm.
updating those pieces of technology and hopefully, yes, then we can take a look at that. So we appreciate that input.
I will say with YouTube live streaming, it does, especially coming from Zoom and breakout. There is a little bit of wobbliness if we go into a closed session. It's also a lot less editable. So if we like lose sound or have to restart like we did, usually I can edit those clips together.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're going to have, multiple short videos instead of a continuous live stream.
Sure.
Deputy Clerk Hoffert, public comments or correspondence?
I actually do. I have had numerous people come into City Hall in the past 2 weeks that have said that they really enjoy the environment that they're walking into. So I want to give credit to the girls out front. They have done
That's great.
phenomenal and people are noticing that. I know that Lee and I try to tell them that they don't always get the recognition that they deserve. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that it's not just a few people. I've had multiple people come in and say that they really enjoy that environment.
That's great.
So it's really nice to be able to
Big deal.
have people on that front line where people are comfortable coming into that office. That's something that's really important to me as well. So,
That's a big deal. Customer service is very important,
yes,
even for a municipal
yes, yes.
organization.
And especially with the amount of like tension and stuff that can rise out there, they handle situations very, very well out there. So they've been doing a great job and I just want to give them the credit that they deserve.
That's great. Good to hear. Anything else? Okay, excellent. Super. We're on to item 10, old business. I wasn't in a rush to reappoint committees because I hardly knew any of you. And so I kind of wanted to get to know you. I'm ready now. And I have already sent this to all of you and gotten feedback that it fits. I must apologize to Councilmember Schiltz because I added a letter in your name in 2 instances on this. So please correct that when it goes into the official record. My apologies.
That's fine.
But if this all looks good to you, then I don't know how do we need a motion and a second to approve these, or how does that work? They're just appointed
They are appointed, but historically, it's been a motion and a second.
To,
A consent approval.
to
by council
accept
if they
the-
agree.
accept the mayoral appointments.
I
Is
think
there-
it formally states that they're accepting their appointments by that motion.
That makes sense. Is there a motion to accept these appointments?
I would like to make a motion to accept these appointments.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept these mayoral appointments. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. And the motion carries 5-0. We'll move on to 10B. This, I want to, we won't discuss this tonight. It's a long document that staff provided to, with the recommendation that you as a council set some rules about these meetings, just so that it's really clear how these meetings will be run. Apparently, there hasn't been one of these, and so staff recommended to have something like this in place. This just can talk about the actual meeting here. So if you would take a look at this, and actually, I would love it if we could assign that task to our newly formed Finance and Ordinance Committee, which is Ashley there. And Tina.
This looks great.
Would you guys take that on to,
Yeah.
just, see what you can,
Yep, and I just wanted to say how important this is, and thank you, Lee, for finding these templates, because
as a new council person too, this would be so helpful to get at the beginning, like during an orientation, just to kind of see. You know, because I had to Google it, like, what's a council meeting like and what are my expectations? And so I think this will really help.
Yeah.
With that.
Excellent, okay. Let's see, do we need a motion in a second to a vote to send that to committee, or how do we handle that?
Just assigned it.
Great.
And then the committee then will follow up with setting a meeting. And then we'll go through what we need to put together.
Sounds good. Great, we'll look forward to seeing what you have for us. 11A is a resolution approving bond purchase agreement. Providing for the issuance of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, series 2023A, and providing for the levy of taxes to pay the same. I'll accept a motion
I would like to make a
approve
motion
this resolution.
to approve that. Sorry, I thought you were done talking. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Second,
Moved and seconded to approve this resolution. Any discussion? It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez. The resolution passes 5-0. Next, we have a resolution approving to write off bad debt for uncollectible ambulance billing. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Moved and seconded to approve this resolution. Could you give us just a super brief walkthrough of what, how this works?
So. Okay, so this is the write-off portion that we are doing for the ambulance. I did contact Tammy to see if I could get some more information. So there is maybe I should start with this. So income offset and bad debt is all considered bad debt regardless of how you're looking at it. I'm just sending this to income offset. However, she is doing some research to see if she can get some more social security numbers for me. So there is a possibility that here in the future, you may see some of these come back to send to income offset. At this point in time, it's just able to get everything cleared from what PCC has given us. So these are all of these ones are either they were unable to collect or the customer did, or the patient did not provide a social security number. So normally we would have Medicare, Medicaid, all those types of things. But we're actually able to collect on the co-pays for Medicaid, Medicare now. So PCC did contact me and say, like, if they have a $250 copay, we can now collect on those. So those are going to be on the income offset this year.
I know from personal experience how hard it is for those emergency responders to collect social security numbers in the middle of an emergency.
Right.
Not always an easy thing.
And that's one of the reasons why I try to follow up, because sometimes they might be able to get it from the hospital, or they might have gotten it once they got them to the hospital, that like a family member was there or something like that. So I was trying to reach out to get that, and I do that every year.
It's a year, right? I mean, you have. It doesn't
Go
go
for income offset. Yeah, and you'll notice these are all like 2020, 2021, because they keep them on the books until they have exhausted all options of obtaining that information. So.
Can you say briefly, what is the Iowa income offset program?
Yeah, so it is, we can collect on the state refund. I cannot collect on federal refund. I can only collect on the state taxes that people are getting back.
So
Okay,
people
we
get a
send it.
refund.
right.
It
Yep.
goes to
Yeah,
city.
so, but there are also, the other thing is that there are other entities that may have a hold on there for Iowa income offset. So the people who file first get their money first. So there may be years where we don't receive anything.
Okay, so, and then if we don't receive anything, it's just in the red on our budget, whatever, it just gets eaten.
It just sits, so it sits out on the, it's called DAS, it's a website, it
Okay.
sits out there until we start clearing it out, and then they're removed off of there. So it's a balance that we don't have, but we collect it, and that's, when they do the audit, they have that as a miscellaneous income, because it's bad debt off of the books, like PCC completely removes it from there, and then we pick up those small amounts that are typically coming in. Sometimes we get it all, sometimes we don't, sometimes it takes years, sometimes the one refund will cover it. It just kind of depends on what
Yeah.
people are owing.
Okay,
Is it also from like any winnings too?
Yep.
Any state
Yep.
winnings they
Oh,
get?
yeah, a lot
So
of-
like if they go to the Riverside Casino
Yeah.
or the lottery or anything that
It's
is
like
Iowa
it's
based.
Garnished first from their
thank you
winnings,
for explaining that.
you know?
Wait, how would that feel? All right, any further discussion? There's a motion and a second to approve this resolution. If no further discussion, there will be a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren.
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
The resolution passes 5-0. Item C, a resolution approving to submit uncollectible ambulance billing to the Iowa Income Offset Program to collect debt. I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion to
Omar
approve.
seconds.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? It'll be a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Next resolution approving bad debt and write-off uncollectible utility billing. Need a motion to approve.
Motion.
It's moved and seconded to approve. Any discussion?
I just want to note that on the memo that you guys have, for
it's
that
this one?
portion,
That we
it says,
received.
please find attached listing of the ambulance billing, and then it gives the utility amount. It is supposed to say utility. It says it up in the top, but in the bottom, I did not catch that. So it is supposed to say utility. So when you're looking at it, you will be able to see on the backside that it has the utility information. We never mind. But yes, on the backside, it does have utility billing, like on the actual resolution portion, it does have that. That was just a portion that I did not notice, and when we checked it back, we did not catch it.
Now, what would cause utility billing to get,
Written off.
People move away, right? And then
just
we
they
can't
move
find them.
away and you don't have any way to,
Are you asking what would cause it to get written off?
well, what would cause it to, them to fall into this? Yeah, to
Okay,
get rid of.
yeah, for the write-off portion, so we can't collect anything under $40, which makes it difficult, because if somebody doesn't pay a bill for $29, we can't ever collect on that
Okay,
through Iowa Income Offset. Again, no social security numbers. If people are deceased and have no estate, we cannot collect on that either. Sometimes we don't have, like on our older applications, we didn't collect social security numbers at that point in time, so those have to be written off as well, because we haven't paid to be able to collect on that.
can that be seen in the system when social security numbers are missing?
So
Could go back and fill them in?
I would love to say yes, that you can flag it,
In
with
code
Income
10.
10.
I knew it was coming.
You can flag things, so we can put like alert pop-ups and
Yeah.
stuff like that for certain things, but not for everything. Sometimes it's just comes up as a note on there. A lot of these people are people who came in prior to when we started implementing the collection of the social security numbers,
Okay.
so. And then we never collected it over that time frame, because if you're in the middle of processing something, sometimes it's difficult to go in there and be like, hey, do I have all the information that I need? I know the girls are doing a good job at looking at that type of stuff too.
Yeah, it's a part of our policy and we have a policy and procedure on that now that was
Yes.
adopted several years ago. That outlines specifically what needs to be collected in order to allow the utility to be set in.
To be set up.
And we don't allow without a social security number.
Okay.
So, and you'll notice that this amount is fairly low in comparison to what we're gonna be collecting, so that's also good information, because that means that the due diligence is getting better as we're going forward.
Excellent. Any further discussion? It's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren,
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yeah.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Schiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. That was item D, correct?
Yes.
So we're on E, a resolution approving to submit uncollectible utility billing to the Iowa Income Offset Program to collect debt. Is there a motion?
Motion.
A motion to approve the resolution. Is there a second? It's moved and seconded to approve the resolution. Any discussion?
And I will note again on this one, there is a possibility where some of these may come back because we have been able to locate some of the social security numbers for that. So you may see in the future that there are a couple of them that will come back if we're able to obtain that information, just like the ambulance.
The bigger part of this has to do with your financial statement. And as Shari had stated with your audit financial statement, so your accounts receivable has to balance back to your funds. And so that's one way is when you're removing that debt, that's adjusting it from those accounts receivable. So you're not waiting for that income to come in, if that makes sense.
It does. Any further questions or anything? Okay, it's a roll call vote. Councilmember McFerren.
Yes.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yep.
Councilmember Schiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez. Motion carries 5-0. Item F. Approve, consider approval of a feasibility study for the Kimberly Park pool.
I make a motion to, yeah, I make a motion.
Second,
And that was your discussion?
Yes, it's moved and seconded to consider the approval of the feasibility study.
Sorry, I've been thinking about it like since yeah, anyway, so one of the things I've been thinking about is, okay, so we know that no matter what, probably it's gonna cost money to fix Kimberly Park pool. I wonder if it would be responsible as we're thinking about feasibility studies where we're gonna need to spend money. Would it be worth it to also think about feasibility studies for something like annexation to increase city's income? Because the last time I can remember talking about annexation was like 2016 or 2017. Because I remember writing for the paper at the time.
Yes.
And so now is that something that would be responsible of us to consider if we're gonna start, if we're gonna have more big projects like Kimberly Park Pool that people outside the city use all the time?
So you're coming up on your anniversary date of that comprehensive plan that included that. And so that would, I think that's a bigger discussion that we
Okay.
could talk about because, that would be another, essentially a feasibility study or
Right.
comprehensive plan is a lot larger.
When would be the date that would be appropriate for us to look at, for council to look at the comprehensive plan? Could we
Yep,
look at
so
putting that on the calendar?
yes, we can, if it works.
Yeah. I know that's a big thing, but
And then
at
I
least we'll
wonder,
know when it's coming.
if we could like table the Kimberly Park Pool feasibility study until we talk about it, if it's like in the next month or two or
So,
whatever.
so again, they're two separate things,
Okay.
Because there is the necessity of understanding what with the feasibility study is really understanding the costs of the repairs that
Oh,
are
that makes
required
sense.
in order to operate
Yeah.
versus the use, the need.
Okay,
I
so it'd be good
think,
to have before we talk about the comprehensive plan. Okay, cool.
The feasibility study. So,
He was.
I'm inclined, because we know the pool is archaic.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to almost bet that we're just going to need a new pool. And to spend $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 on a study to tell us that. I think, why don't we just gear up to actually getting information on what we're gonna need for a new pool.
well, that is the request of the feasibility.
Yeah,
That would,
that will
that would
actually-
include engineer, that would include. It encompasses all those pieces to better
Yeah.
understand. What Nick is saying is that because we don't know what we don't know, and we just keep. Putting Band-Aids on things as they
Right.
arise,
Your,
the
But I don't-
feasibility is the entire
your. Yeah,
infrastructure.
your feasibility study will take a look at the area of what that.
Right.
What size of a facility could you support if you were to build new, and it will
I just-
kind of give you options and things to look towards and.
Right, I just don't want to spend any money for them to say, look, this is what you need to fix it. This is what we need.
$60,000
I think-
there.
This is-
Fixing, they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna be looking at,
I think the feasibility really is to look at. The population that's here, population that
I get-
that you will draw in if you were, and it depends on what kind of a facility that you build. If you build a traditional pool versus an aquatic center, that's gonna bring in different people and they'll be able to tell you, you know, based on what your draw is, what size of a facility you should build, you know, what types of
Right.
amenities you should be looking at. You know,
I
they'll,
just-
they'll tell you what you'll need.
I just don't want a study to tell us what we already know.
Skip a
With
step, in other words.
as far as, you know, this is what you need, but I get that, I just don't want them to tell us that, oh, yeah, you're gonna need a new pool, and this is how much it's gonna be. I just wanna like say, all right, here's what we're gonna do, we need a new pool, and this is what it's gonna be to get it up to, and with your demographics and, you know, the costs.
Are you,
I think if tomorrow we were to say, like, let's just replace the pool, we would still need a feasibility study to know how to replace it, right? Like,
But why does it cost $60,000?
I think that's my question. It
So-
seems like an awful lot.
So here's, I have a couple of recommendations.
Yeah.
So, so the first thing would be, is to table it to have more information before you to better understand what the feasibility study would encompass. So, and the way you do about that is I would go back to Nick and I would say, we would send out an RFP, a request for proposal, and we would say specifically, what are we looking for in a feasibility study, or what can you provide for a feasibility study? I don't know if city manager has any guidance on that, but I think that's what I'm hearing is that we don't understand what is for $60,000. What does that price tag provide us that maybe that we don't already know? We know it needs work. And then are there specific things in this feasibility study that we want to identify? Do we want to identify, you know, the aquatic, an aquatic center, you know, one of the things that was on the comprehensive plan was splash pad. You know, does that mean we would encompass what that request was in that comprehensive plan to bring in a splash pad? Along with the, I mean, there's some things, and I think that I think what I'm hearing from council is just, you just need a little, you need some more information, so you know what you're approving here.
so can we do an RFP for feasibility studies? Is that the way forward?
I would just recommend that council would table
Oh,
this
okay.
and just allow some time for us to go back and take a look at this with Nick and
Got it.
and then see what steps that we need to take. And typically it would cost that much. You would do an RFP, and I believe it is in our purchase policy that would be, but I wasn't involved in the original discussions, Dave, so I don't know what was instructed.
And I think part of it, Nick just wanted to not let it fall on the wayside. So
Yeah.
I think he wanted to bring it up that, you know, if we don't start that discussion now, you know, we're gonna be right back where we are in a couple of years if we don't start.
And you're on the part
Approaching
board,
this.
are you? And what, huh?
You haven't had a meeting.
You haven't had a meeting? Oh, maybe you should have a meeting. on that.
And it'll
Just
come
see
down,
what-
you know, depending on how you want to proceed as to whether you do a request for proposal or you're gonna, I mean, if you know that you're gonna, but the idea is that you want to build a new pool, then I think you go out for a request for qualifications, and you're gonna want to interview firms that do this to figure out who you think's best gonna work with you to provide you a good quality product. So you got two choices.
And what Nick had brought to me is he was wanting an opportunity to capture remaining ARPA funds to assist with that feasibility study. So I think then that was, of course, the sense of urgency to get that before you is because we know we're down to, you know, a small, I don't want to say a small amount, we're under 50,000 with the ARPA money. So I think that was the other thing too, is, you know, wanting to get it before you to capture those funds, or at least half of those funds or some of those funds to put towards that.
I
That
have a
study.
question.
Mhm.
If, what, and Nick, I know Nick's not on anymore, but what kind of repairs would we need to get the pool ready by May? Would we,
It's already been done.
it's already been
Yeah,
done, okay.
that work was completed with this, when the pool closed.
Okay.
It was all of, you know, they brought in the company that sealed up what they, you know, where they thought they had the leaks. I think the pool's all been repainted. I mean, I think they spent what,
30,000.
130 or 150,000 to get everything done, but that was budgeted in, you know, in the budget to have that ready. So, but like Nick said, this probably is, if you're lucky, it'll last like 4 or 5 years, hopefully.
Okay.
But by the time you start to develop, if you're gonna look at a new facility, you're gonna spend 12 to 18 months just getting through design, location,
Mhm.
financing, and you'll take another 15 to 18 months to build it.
All right, so it sounds like, I think we should move on for tonight, but it sounds like council wants to see some more detail about what.
I think we need a feasibility enough for things to care.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
So tabling it for tonight, I think is
Mhm.
kind of, and typically, I think you want us to vote on the current motion. And then
Correct.
do another one with the second, with the table. All right, so the motion is to approve. Or, well, I guess, what did we, the motion
There's
was.
3 options, so do we just
What?
say the motion for option 3, do nothing?
So you have a
Motion was to
I think it was.
consider approval of feasibility.
Consider it. The motion was to consider approval, so-
Vote it down, and then you can make the
All right.
motion and second.
We won't consider it.
So I guess we're not
So
gonna
this is
consider.
a very, this is just basically open-ended. So your discussion of appropriate action to consider approval of the feasibility study. So you have your motion and your second on that. And
Yes.
then you go ahead and you're going to, yes, vote it down.
And you can motion to table.
And
All right.
then
further.
we don't even have to motion and table, then all I can do is just go bring it.
We're just saying we're not considering it right now.
Yeah.
And
We'll bring it
then,
back. Yeah.
then for staff, then we'll go back to Nick and then we can work with him to bring back an action item better prepared with the details. Okay,
Okay, so you're gonna vote no if you wanna table this.
No, you're, like we said, you're not gonna table, it, you're just gonna vote it down for tonight.
Right.
Staff will be directed basically through your no vote to come back with something else.
So you're gonna vote no then, to do that.
Yes.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve this. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no.
No.
The motion is denied 5-0. Item G, set the date for a special city council meeting for March 20th for the purpose of interview of city manager applicants. We need to clarify some details here and talk about this a little bit, but I'll accept a motion to approve this. Motion to approve, there's a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve, setting the date for March 20th. Do we have first of all, just to talk through the process here real briefly. And actually, just to back up, we need to talk about this for just a minute, because we didn't have the language quite right at our last council meeting, right? And so when you read it in the newspaper or watch the video, the way that we talked about it wasn't quite right. And I guess I felt a little embarrassed about that, but also like, it's okay, right? I mean, we're just all doing the best we can here, so that's all right. We're just, we're working it out. In talking with, we had talked about it in terms of posting internally only, like the only applicants could be, would have to be
Current employees.
current employees of the city of West Liberty. In talking with the attorney, he recommended that, he said that the way it's written in the law is actually a little bit, maybe that would work. But really you should probably post it so that it is public. Anyone could apply. The way that you would do that basically is just to have a limited scope. That might have been a better way to talk about it. So limited scope, application process, right? So that's kind of what we have done. It's posted on the city website and on the bulletin board at City Hall. And it is open to anybody to apply through Thursday, I believe, March 9th at 5 p.m.
correct.
So that's the correct way to say it.
That you have met your required publication.
Right, it needs to be published for 10 days publicly. Mayor Pro Tem and myself will go through the applications that come in. That's typically the way that has been done. And then we'll set up interviews. Now, I don't know if we can get those all in on March 20th, but that would be ideal. What was your idea for a time frame, Ms. Hoffert?
So depending, that's why it's kind of open-ended right now, is because depending on the amount of applicants that you get and the amount of actual interviews that you guys want to do. It's gonna kind of depend on when I need to set that
Yeah.
actual meeting. So with the deadline on the 9th, then we have some time to be able to set that, but the 20th is the day that we will do those, and then we will kind of have to look at everything. And I do know that, the mayor had reached out, and anything before 3:30 would not be possibility. It wouldn't be a possibility. So if that would be something I would need to take into consideration when setting that up for you guys.
Yeah. Right, so members were all available. Does that still work for you? I know that you kind of said
I can make it work.
Last time, I think city went through this process, they did all the interviews in one day, like,
Correct.
so
Yep,
it's
with the
feasible,
consultant.
certainly
Yep.
feasible to do that, and and so hopefully we could maybe do that in the.
And depending on the amount that you have,
We haven't set
there-
the time.
it was noted preferred internal candidates first, so you
Yeah.
could possibly do that interview if there are internal candidates, and then we could branch out from there. The posting requirements is what we're meeting right now, as you
Yeah.
guys did motion to focus on internal, but we had to meet all the requirements, so there is the possibility that you guys could do the preferred internal candidates first and then branch out from there. So that is also something that we can take a look at once that deadline has come, and then I can work with you guys on that.
So today we'll just set the day for March
Yes.
20th
Yep.
and then watch for more details.
Correct.
So as I understand it, if we potentially get applicants applying for it that are from the general public or outside the city, we can still interview them.
Yes, we can.
Yes, yes, you can
That is
interview
possibility
Yes.
to interview
anybody
them.
that applies, you guys have the ability to
The-
interview.
The
them.
only thing is, when we meet on the 20th, if that is fine with everybody. The only thing that we really need, that we're required to do, is to figure out what we want. You
Like a
know, for a
presentation?
No, what we
Oh.
want for a contract,
Oh,
like the details.
thought you meant
You know-
like, how are we gonna interview them?
No, well, that is a given, because we have already that format in place. We just have to ask the same questions, whoever it is.
Or you're talking the interview process, like the actual interview portion of it, is that?
Well, I'm talking about, we as a council need to make sure that we know what we want in a candidate, like, so that we know what we want to offer that candidate. We want the candidate, I mean, we already have an ordinance that says they have to live so much, so that's already factored in, but what are we going to offer them for pay scale? Are we going to give them so much for moving? If,
But-
you know, those details, we need to know what we want. And I figured that on that 20th is we can figure out what it is we want, do the interviews. And then, for whoever applies. And then if that is something we feel confident to offer, we have that in place of what we want to offer the candidate.
And you do have the ability to offer like, you do have the ability to make a decision that night.
Right, it's
However,
just,
you can also carry it over to the 21st meeting as well, if there is time
Yes.
that you guys need to think about
Yes.
those things.
Mhm.
So on the agenda, when I send it out, you guys will notice that it's gonna say discussion and appropriate follow-up on there. That could be something where if you needed more time to discuss those items, you could put that onto that.
we just have to make sure.
Basis though already
We do.
because of the job description of what the candidate is applying for.
Right,
But, and
the
of course,
details.
they have the ability to negotiate as any person
Right.
getting an offer would, but.
And,
Yeah.
and Deputy Clerk Hoffert has already done a lot of research on that. We're kind of doing this like a committee of the whole council. And so I will pass that on to you because I've collated it into a document. Shari has put together like similar cities that have municipalities that have electric municipalities and what their city managers' qualifications are and what their pay scale is, et cetera. So.
and that is something we can talk
We'll get
about
into.
when we're in our session as a committee as a whole. And then we can make that the action when we are in open session.
Okay, is there any further?
There's a decision,
further-
right, correct?
Yep, that is exactly what happened last time. That discussion happens in that closed session, and then when you come out, then at that
Then-
point in time, you would make your decision, regardless if it's I
Yeah.
would wait until tomorrow to have more time
Right.
to think, or I want to go ahead.
Because really, the only thing that we're really required to by law is to make sure that we're posting this for veterans.
And bear in mind, we're taking, you decided to do this as a step. It's you know, it's an iterative process. If you aren't satisfied with the applicants in this round, then we always can go to the next step and probably hire somebody to run a process that's larger. You know, but that's definitely there as an option. So this is kind of a step-by-step process. Any further discussion about setting the meeting date for interviews to March 20th? If none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. We have one more item. It's setting the date for the budget work session for is that,
I did give a date because, I'm just sorry, I'm saying sometime in March, because I wanted to have a discussion
Oh.
about an availability.
should we look now for available dates? How do you want to do it?
Preference would be after March 21st, but before.
I can do the 28th.
Yeah, before the end of the month.
The next meeting, I can do that.
Because we have so as of right now, we've been extended till April 30th.
Okay,
So it allows us.
I can't do the 28th. I could do the 27th.
Yep, that's fine.
I'll be out of town the 22nd through the 28th.
Give us a day and then toward the end of March that works for you. 30th.
30.
Or the first week of April.
I'm out the last 2 days in March for municipal. For yeah.
What about the
Institute,
29th?
yeah, I can't talk.
What about Wednesday, the 29th?
I'll be, well, depending on when we start. I'm occupied until 6.
I was gonna say, how about we do this, because I know everybody has a very busy schedule. So how about we do this, instead of setting it tonight, why don't we take a look at our schedule? We know the time frame that we need to look at. And if you each could individually email me,
I would really rather
Yeah.
just do it right now if we have our calendars out. Is
and that's fine,
that-
I'm just saying.
Is that okay? If I put it on my to-do list,
Yeah,
it goes somewhere else.
Well, if we do it late enough so that Ashley,
We have jazz band until 6, so I can be here at like
What day are we talking
6:05.
about?
This is on the Wednesday, the 29th.
29th.
Wednesday, the 29th.
that's the days I'm out for.
You're out.
Gone.
I think you said the last 2 days, the last 2 are 30 and 31. Are you gone the 29th as well?
I think it's,
29th, you can probably get away. Isn't that? I mean,
It's
if you're,
30th, 31st.
they'll have just an
So
afternoon
you're
session.
gone, she's gone 3 days. Can we do it the first week of April? Or does it have to be that last week?
I will be gone at Iowa Jazz
our
Championships.
publications, we will run out of time for publication.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're there Thursday, Friday.
That's what I was going there
There's a
too.
lot of work. that
Can we
goes
do
into
it the
this.
27th, but
Like, I'm
recorded
gonna
for
have to-
Josh to watch? Like, I don't know what, I guess I don't know what it is that we're gonna be doing.
Who's here available on the 27th?
Yes.
I am,
You're gone.
I
Right,
mean, I can always jump onto something. I'm not doing anything to, I'm just guessing.
oh man, I hate hybrid meetings, I really do, but and especially when you're traveling, let's not do that, that's not.
Who's here on the 29th? I'll make it work. So who can be available
I'm
on the
available.
29th?
the
Yes.
29th.
I can make that work in the evening.
I'm available anytime 29th. Does that work for you?
I'll make it work.
What time?
Tell me what time.
6.
6 o'clock, 6 o'clock on March 29th. We got it done. Do we have a motion for this?
Motion.
Is it here or?
Yes, we'll make it here.
We are pushing the limits here tonight.
will
Uh,
you send out a
let's-
invite link? Okay.
let's be clean about it. Can we have a motion
Ashley
to,
made the motion.
Yep.
Second,
for March 29th at 6 P.M.?
Mhm.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I
Motion carries 5-0. Any opposed? No, motion carries 5-0. Okay, thanks, guys. This was a good one. Ms. Smith,
Oh, a motion to adjourn.
moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.